US President Barack Obama scorning Russia's actions in Ukraine. He gave a passionate speech at the UN General Assembly on Monday, ahead of talks with Russia's Vladimir Putin. The American leader condemned Moscow's decision to rip up the rulebook of international law, something which led to Washington's decision to impose political and economic sanctions on the Kremlin. Here is what he had to say.
Consider Russia's annexation of Crimea and further aggression in eastern Ukraine. America has few economic interests in Ukraine. We recognize the deep and complex history between Russia and Ukraine. But we cannot stand by when the sovereignty and territorial integrity of a nation is flagrantly violated. If that happens without consequence in Ukraine, it could happen to any nation gathered here today. That's the basis of the sanctions that the United States and our partners impose on Russia. It's not a desire to return to a Cold War.
Obama said despite Russia's and Ukraine's close economic and cultural ties, Ukrainians now wanted to join Europe more than ever. He added that the Kremlin's decision to take over Crimea and destabilize eastern Ukraine had a kind of boomerang effect, not just harming Russia's western neighbor, but Russia's progress as well.
Sanctions have led to capital flight, a contracting economy, a fall in ruble, and the emigration of more educated Russians. Imagine if instead Russia had engaged in true diplomacy and worked with Ukraine and the international community to ensure its interests were protected. That would be better for Ukraine, but also better for Russia.
Obama then went on to express his willingness to work with Russia and Iran on Syria to fight Islamic State and seal the power vacuum in the Middle East. Russia has recently engaged in a military build-up in Syria to help prop up President Bashar al-Assad, while Washington backs rebel fighters attempting to dislodge him from his family's 4-decade rule.
Yes, realism dictates that compromise will be required to end the fighting and ultimately stamp out ISIL. But realism also requires a managed transition away from Assad and to a new leader, and an inclusive government that recognizes there must be an end to this chaos so that the Syrian people can begin to rebuild.
He went on to say that chanting death to America in Iran does not create jobs or make Tehran more secure, and that any leadership that amends constitutions to stay in power are only acknowledging their failure to build a successful country for their people.